Is it better to rent or to own a home? That is the question. I think that's what Hamlet said when Shakespeare wrote it. But the answer is depends. I will say most of the time, I would, from the examples I've seen over my 20 plus years of doing this, financially, it's better to own when you take in the long term big picture. There can be instances where there are times where, from a cash flow standpoint, it can be less expensive to rent, meaning a lot of times, if you want to rent a home or an apartment and compare it to something you could get as an alternative to purchase, there can be instances like now when rates are higher and you start running numbers and it's less money each month to rent, whether it's an apartment or a single family home. It could be cheaper to rent, air quotes, cheaper to rent when it comes to cash flow each month. However, long term, when you start figuring things that when you pay rent, your interest rate's 100% because you don't get to keep any of the money. When you start doing the math and looking at the long term, we have calculators and projections that we can show and use at another time. But paying down a mortgage, right? Every month when you pay a mortgage, portion of that goes to principal. So you're getting a lower balance. Secondly, the interest you pay is, portion, some or all could be tax deductible. So that helps put money back in your pocket. So even though maybe you're paying a little more each month for home ownership, at the end of the year when taxes get done, it may very well be the same or maybe even less for home ownership. So take that in consideration. And then lastly, the big one is appreciation. If you buy a home and let's say historical averages are 2 to 3% appreciation, that means if you bought, like, let's just say a $300,000 home, 2% means this year you make $6,000 on appreciation doing just living, right? Versus if you were to rent a home, you don't get that 6%. You don't get the paid down mortgage and you don't get the tax write-offs. So financially, I will say as a whole, in most instances from what I see, certainly not all the time, every time, but in most examples, it is financially better to own a home. Now, there are very good reasons why you shouldn't, right? And those, that different video, different time, but I do believe there are good times to buy. And I think there are times when you shouldn't. I don't know that the market has a ton of bearing on that. It's more, you shouldn't buy if you have job income stability, instability, employment instability. Maybe you're going to move, maybe get promoted, maybe get married, getting divorced, having a baby, like all these things that life can happen. If you're not sure where you're going to be long term, even heck, just a year or two from now, I can understand why that may make somebody pause and wait, in which case I'm on board with. But to say, oh, rates are high, I'm not buying right now. Look, at the end of the day, rates are temporary. They can go up or go down. And if all they ever do is go up, today's quote high rates, if all they ever do is go up, these are great rates. If they do come down and you buy today, it means you can refinance later. So I wouldn't let interest rate be the excuse. But going back to the original question, is it better to buy or rent, in terms of financials? Could it be cheaper to rent? Again, not long term, not big picture. Let me know if you disagree. Thoughts, comments, all that fun stuff down below. And if you have more questions, the Mortgage Mark team is here to help as always. And as always, when you think mortgage, think Mark.